Hi, hello. I can see people have started joining. Hello, everyone. Hi. Yes. Okay. So this is our third live session, and we've been doing a series of these live sessions with all our trainers. हमारे इससे पहले 2 live sessions already हो चुके हैं. If you've not seen or attended those live sessions, you can check them out. They are there on our page. And today is going to be our third live session with our trainer Preeta Ganguli, and she'll be joining us shortly. Before that, just to update you all that our course on trauma-informed care practices, we've launched our second cohort, and the applications are going to close by 31st of July. So if you've not already signed up for it and you're looking forward to it, please go and check the link in our bio and sign up for it. Don't wait till the 31st of July because we've already started with the shortlisting process. Candidates who've been shortlisted, they've been sent an email to schedule an interview, and whoever clears the interview will be joining us for the second cohort of the course. And do check your spam folder. Sometimes emails, they go to the folder, they go to the spam folder, so check it out and check it there. I think Preeta has already joined us here in the live session, so I'll send her a request to join us. Send Preeta a request to join us, and I think she'll be here in a moment or two. Hi Preeta, how are you?
Hi. Hi, Pallavi. Yes. Got a nice glimpse of my view there for a second.
Yeah, I did.
Yes. Oh,
Okay. So how are you? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. Just
Yeah.
a little nervous to be hosting this live, but definitely looking
Yeah.
forward to the course. Yeah, we've been receiving quite a good amount of signups, and we've been going through the shortlisting process. So definitely looking forward to that. And thank you so much for joining us for the live session.
Yes.
For everyone, Preeta was our was one of our trainers for the first cohort as well. She took the class on non-violent communication for the course, and how basically you can use non-violent communication when you are practicing as a trauma-informed therapist. And this time as well, for this cohort, she'll be covering the same topic, and how you can involve nonviolent communication and use it in a very socio-culturally appropriate manner in your practice as a trauma-informed or trauma-focused therapist. So प्रीता, अभी जब हम लोग कोर्स स्टार्ट करने से पहले हम लोगों ने we got in touch with our first cohort, and just to
Right.
understand how trauma
Mm.
informed care and the knowledge that we gained from the course has impacted their life or their practice, their personal life, in
Mm.
whatever capacity. Um, and there were certain themes that came up, certain observations that we had.
Mm.
And one of them was language and the role of
Mm.
communication, like how they were
Right.
using it, how there was a shift in their language, the words they use with their clients, how to use communication as one of the most powerful tools when we are there in a
Mm.
therapy session. So it'll be really great if you could
Mm.
actually share, according to you, what is the
Mm.
role of language when it comes to trauma-informed care? Uh, practicing it as a therapist, how it holds the power to impact you as a therapist and also your clients.
Okay. So, the way I see it, right? Language is very powerful. Everything around us, it's through language that it's kind of affecting us and coming through to us, especially in our interactions with each other, with people. So even if we just pause and look at what's coming into the door when we're, working with clients, a lot of it will have to do with language. Something that hurts us, you just look at your own experience, the things that have hurt us, which are language based, right? Because it's the meaning that we've attached to it. It's the meaning that it carried for us, not only what we attached, but maybe what was also intended. So communication and language has a lot of power. So if it has so much power to hurt us, it also has so much power to heal us. Sometimes just saying something that I see you, I hear you, I'm here, instead of saying, okay, but, can have, very magical shift. So say someone is bringing some hurt to me and I'm sitting with, you know, I'm in a hurry to get them to some place, which can sometimes happen, especially as a new therapist. They're like, I can see the path like going very ahead and I'm racing there. But the client is not there and I have jumped somewhere ahead and trying to bring in some perspective. Language is what can help us to slow in that process, to meet the client where they are at, right? So bringing in that communication to communicate also the intent that we have and hold space for them to bring in what they really want to do as well, right? Because it works both ways. My lens of communication opens up space for them to bring in things as well. So I think communication is just very powerful. It helps us to connect. It helps us to center, to maybe ground, to make a person feel accepted. And these are a couple of things which can be, basic goals of ours in trauma-informed care. So things that we want to create in this space for the client, and that can happen via communication. And I think especially where a lot of us nowadays are working online, like I know I do, I know you do, right? There are a lot of us who are doing online practices, and body language can become limiting also in communication. Verbal communication can become more powerful. Like body language still has a lot of power, of course, but verbal communication can become even more important there, because that is exactly what is giving that feedback and keeping that kind of thread going in a way, right? So I think, yeah, I've been all about communication. It's just a lot, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, अभी वाले time में where I see a lot of therapists working virtually, and
Mhm.
कभी कभी in our situation ऐसा भी होता है कि videos are off and you can't really see how the person is reacting. Words, they play a very powerful role, and just as a therapist check in करते time
Mhm.
waste time पे
Yeah.
कि it plays a huge role, I think, there. And since you talked about this, of course, communication, language, the kind of words you're
Mhm.
using, it plays a very important role. I think it's really important for us to also understand the kind of shift it can bring
Mhm.
in a therapist practice. कि अगर कोई थेरेपिस्ट प्रैक्टिस कर रहा है तो किस
Mhm.
तरीके का शिफ्ट आ सकता है, मे बी इफ एन एग्जांपल के साथ ऐसा कुछ हो सके फॉर पीपल टू एक्चुअली
Mhm.
अंडरस्टैंड.
Okay, sure. Um, so I'm going to look at this in a couple of different ways also, right, and bring that in here. Because when since we mentioned that we also bring in a non-violent communication lens, like we're inspired from that kind of perspective as well.
Yeah.
And when we're bringing in this lens and we're looking at things this way, it's basically for, those who are not familiar with this, it's a very compassionate communication sort of space. So it's coming from a space of I want to express what my needs, feelings, etc. are, and opening up space for another one, the other person, to also express that. So sometimes it is listening, sometimes it is speaking. Of course, there are different ways. I'm not going to get into details of it that we're going to do in the course. But how we bring it into our therapy space also, that as a therapist, in this very moment, being able to recognize and see what my client is bringing in. What are they feeling? What do they need? Helps me do my work better, because if I know, okay, right now my client needs a different direction. Right now they need a different perspective. Right now they need me to be authentic. Right now they need, and these may not be the typical terms. That's why we say it's inspired. We kind of, mold it to what we needed it to be also. If we're able to pick on what I can see my client needs right now, and that has really helped me, because sometimes, like I mentioned, with when you're new at your practice, you will be running ahead sometimes, or you don't really realize, and this is a very grounding factor of just sitting with what does my client need. And this is honestly something that I think, I don't remember where it came from, but I know Akanksha will also relate very closely to it. It's like, and she keeps reminding me as well, right, that is it, whose need is it? Is it the client's need? Is it the therapist's need? And just constantly just sitting with that. So this brings in that lens as well of checking in. So for us as a therapist to inform, it brings that sense. The other thing that it does is it gives my client also space of speaking up, right? Of like bringing in their feelings. So I'm giving them a space of reflecting. So, you know, very often my clients will not, some clients, not all, may not have the words to explain their feelings. And we are often in our thoughts. If I ask anybody here, how are you feeling? You'll be like, we're feeling dismissed, or we're feeling something. Like there are many thought words that might come in than feeling words, right? Instead of saying I'm frustrated or I'm hurt, I'm angry, we'll be using thoughts that I feel like they did this to hurt me, or I feel like they don't care. That's the words that we end up using. So
Yeah.
bringing the client, also creating that shift. And the minute you bring that reflection in, that, hey, can we sit with how you're feeling and what brought you here, of maybe you needed to feel respected, that's why you're feeling hurt. So that instantly brings up, a kind of a spark for the client also, that, okay, yeah, firstly it's validating the feelings instead of going in any other different directions of analysis. We're just firstly validating, and we're bringing them the power to also notice and reflect on what they're feeling, what they're needing, which ultimately is kind of a goal, right? Like we say that one of our professional goals is that our profession is not needed as much eventually. So if we want to empower people, which is, of course, we're quite away from that, but we want people to live empowered, that they can do things themselves, in this sense, that they can have that ability to tune in, check in, be aware of what they're feeling, what they're needing, and that kind of becomes a part of their healing and, processing journey as well. So I think that is, in these two ways, that's what I see as, very big shifts that way, apart from like where you don't bring in this conscious, compassionate communication.
Right, absolutely. And I think जब आपने बोला भी अभी आकांक्षा वाली बात पे मेरे भी दिमाग में वही आई थी सबसे पहले क्योंकि I still remember
Yeah.
I think in the very initial days when I started working तो ऐसे needs and feelings के बारे में इतना पता नहीं था तब और वो हमेशा यही बोलती थी is this your need or is this the person that you're working with उनकी need है ये और
Yeah.
तब जाकर धीरे धीरे करके it started making a lot of sense कि हाँ maybe it's my need and I think for
Yeah.
therapists understanding this entire thing from NVC of needs and feelings
Mhm.
for sure it makes a lot of shift because then you can actually separate yourself from that situation
Yeah.
and think about it थोड़ा और अच्छे से. And for sure, for clients, it can be a really empowering experience to actually know what they're feeling. And also, we talk a lot about sitting with our feelings, right?
Yeah.
तो जब पता चल जाता है कि क्या feel हो रहा है, then
Ha.
I don't know, मतलब the process is not easy, of course. Sitting with your feelings is never
Mhm.
easy. But still,
Not at
you
all.
know what you're sitting with. ऐसा नहीं कि
Yes.
अभी भी अंधेरे में ही है कुछ.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
I
yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
And it's really beautiful, because sometimes when you bring that kind of highlight of, hey, let's bring in how you're feeling right now, and you know sometimes if someone is stuck and you bring in that kind of the emotion wheel, and it's so powerful to see sometimes so much resonance with so many of the words, because sometimes you're just feeling so much and you didn't realize it because we're so busy and thinking and doing and sitting with the thoughts, we don't realize there's so many feelings. So no wonder we're feeling overwhelmed, or someone is feeling that dysregulated or that much is coming up because there's so much happening. So the minute we're able to also look at it, also gives that वैसे ऊपर से देखने वाला view, right? That you get to zoom out a bit and actually see it from the larger picture, where you think that you're here and then you open up and you see, okay, there's all of this that's happening. And yeah, kind of cool.
Absolutely. It is. It is. It's really cool and fascinating. I don't know. I just love it. But yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think since we're talking about, अभी आपने बात भी किया non-violent communication का और हम needs and feelings पे आ भी गए हैं. So do you think there's some easy and simple way that actually people can involve this practice, of using like non-violent communication in their everyday communication? Something
Right.
like, I know it's a complex process and complex चीजें हैं इसमें काफी सारी, but how can people actually start? Maybe starting point क्या हो सकता है for people?
Well, the very starting point would probably be that we have to become aware of our feelings and our needs, but that can sometimes take deeper work. So another one I would say is also the concept of I statements, right? That बहुत बार in our communication we're saying तुमने, you did this, you should have done it this way, instead of bringing the focus to I, right? And that's a very big thing. And the reason NVC has stayed with me so much is because I've read about it and I liked these concepts from it, which is why I integrate that. Is just the concept of stating an observation, right? Of I saw this and that made me feel this way. So, and because I need this. So it's kind of parts and then even the ask. So I love this division of bringing in what did I see, hear, or notice. मुझे क्या feel हुआ उससे, मुझे जरूरत क्या थी, and what do I need for the person to be doing next time. With the openness, of course, it's coming from a completely compassionate space of I'm communicating and the other person can also communicate. Not just that I will communicate and it's done, right? It's also for opening up space for the other person to also be able to communicate, and that we can both hold space and then reach a point together. But basically just speaking in I statements. So what is it bringing up for you? And initially it may also be difficult to separate it into all of these points. So just starting with I statements, right? That this is where I'm coming from. This is what's happening for me. With the openness of listening to the other person. I think that's a very key part, because sometimes we get caught into I. So just I, like you have to listen to me and what I say is right. And that's not entirely fair either, because again, that's not going to lead us to communicating in a compassionate way. Again, we're like, that picture of two goats with their horns just tangled in together, that comes to mind, because it's very often like that when we're not communicating from the I space with openness for others. We're just both hurt people and just kind of ramming heads, not realizing that the other is also getting hurt, and so are you. Like you're both actually getting hurt. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the reason why there's so much of focus on the observation part also. ना मतलब even
Yeah.
non-violent communication में just
Hmm.
सबसे पहली चीज I still remember the training जो हमारे
Hmm.
बिल्कुल ऐसे इनिशियल डेज में हुई थी और
Yeah.
एनवीसी के हमें सिखाया था, तब भी यही वाला चीज था ना, सबसे पहला स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट यही था दैट व्हाट इज एन ऑब्जर्वेशन एंड व्हाट इज द
Mhm.
जजमेंट.
Yeah.
या
Exactly.
एब्सोल्युटली.
And a very important one, right? कि judgment अलग होता है. They're saying that you disrespected me is the judgment, whereas saying that when I saw you slamming the door, I felt hurt because I felt like I was disrespected and I need to be respected. Right? That's where the difference comes in this sort of communication, that we've broken that up. You're still communicating the same thing, but yes, the
Hmm.
judgment point is very apt, because so many times we just jump into judgment thinking we are communicating from I was
Yeah.
disrespected, right? That, but we can open it up even further to open
Hmm.
space for this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And without the other person getting into that defensive zone because they feel blamed in that moment.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
made you feel this way.
yeah.
Yeah.
It can feel so attacking, and we get
Yeah.
so defensive, right? If
Yeah.
anyone talks to us, we'll also kind of,
Absolutely.
start to get defensive and feel hurt, and then that's the whole other ball game of then communicating about that that's going to happen.
Yeah. Absolutely. And
Yes.
because again, we are talking about NVC and we've talked about certain concepts that are involved in it.
Mhm.
I am also curious क्योंकि we talk about this thing so much ना कि how the concept of therapy या उसमें
Mhm.
client therapist relationship कितना ज्यादा मतलब हमारे पास तो west से ही आया है ना,
Mhm.
so it's so westernized and we are still actually trying to make it more culture appropriate, socio-culturally appropriate ho.
Mhm.
So what do you think? Is there a different understanding of NVC if we talk about our culture? Matlab, is it going to look the
Mhm.
same or it can change?